So Keith, we're hearing a lot from local leaders as well as state leaders about the importance of self-care and mental health awareness. And there's increasing recognition around those consequences, which I'm grateful for, because we finally have started to overcome a lot of the stigma that's associated with mental illness, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So you're a veteran of thinking about mental health solutions and care strategies. What advice would you have for families who may be confronting mental illness for the very first time?
Well, there's general advice for anyone that's confronting that for the first time, and there's advice now, and I've thought about how do you blend those two together. And I think the first piece of advice I have for the caregiver is be patient with yourself. You're not going to find out all the answers right away. You may not be in a position where you can go to a support group yet. It's too soon for you to go to a support group, because your loved one is in crisis and you're trying to figure out how to get them out of crisis. And so sometimes we see people come to our group and you want to help them, but they're not at a place where they need a professional to help them sort what's going on and to get there. But then you've got to be willing to give yourself the hour. If you're going to join a support group, that hour is for you. And that's one other thing that I tell people as someone whose children are living in wellness. The reason I still go back to that group is for me, not for them. Allow yourself that time, that this will help me be a better caregiver if I'm allowing these people in the room with me and myself to just take care of me. And I think that's just true no matter when that situation is coming to pass. The other piece of advice that has been a little bit harder for me to follow even is talk to people, reach out to people. Tell the people that you want to tell. If there's someone in your life that you think, I should tell them, but I'm not going to tell them, think about finding a way to bring that into the conversation. I know it's not my line, but something that I repeat too often probably is, if it was cancer, I would tell them. If my child had cancer, I would tell people that my child had cancer. And so give yourself that opportunity to not be alone. You're not alone. Especially COVID-19 is making everyone isolate, and mental illness in this country makes you isolate. I'd like to think that I'm, fairly self-aware, fairly in touch with my feelings kind of person. But I don't tell a lot of people about this. And so if you can't find people in your friends or family circle that you can talk to about it, find groups like the Depression Bipolar Support Alliance support groups. Find other places that you can share that. People, whether it's the Moms Group or a Caretaker Network, find places to not stay isolated with it. And I think that's, no matter what else happens, no matter what the outcome of your situation, whether your loved one needs further help or struggles longer or becomes to live in wellness, it's still going to be helpful to have made those contacts.
Keith, I just love what you just said, because every single one of us has been touched by mental illness pre-COVID-19, right?
Yeah.
We just don't bring it up as a topic of conversation. I think with COVID-19, with this pandemic, it's really allowing us the opportunity to open up with one another and share those challenges and maybe some victories, right, that we've had in overcoming some of these hurdles. So I think that from a mental health issue, it's really allowing those of us in a generation that may not have been so open up about it, so that others can either learn from us, they can support us, join us, and hopefully we can all band together to help and lift one another. So thank you for sharing that, because I think that, again, demonstrates that mental illness does impact all of us. Yeah. So let me just ask one last question of all of our panelists today. There's a lot of reason to be worried and cynical right now, but we wanted to bring you all together because each of you has a story to tell for why we should be optimistic and hopeful. And thank you so much for sharing that optimism. Can you give all the caregivers out there a reason to look at the bright side of the things that we find in our current difficult situation? And Keith, you just shared a story. I mean, each of us have shared a story, but maybe an observation about caregiving, specific to caregiving, that can be motivating to each of us to remain positive.
Sure, Mary, I'd love to. A lot of people talk about caregiving when they're going through it. But the positive side is that it really does fuel them to be able to share that love and share that caring. And now more than ever during the pandemic, I think that that's what we need to focus on. I'm not totally helpless as I'm self-isolating. I can find different ways to reach out and help people, and then find that fulfillment by doing it. So maybe I can't go there and hold somebody's hand, but I can still give them a call. Maybe now I've got more time to make terrific food, and I'm going to have to bake bread like Keith is, and find more ways to connect because we are all home together. I think that focusing on that positive, focusing on that ability to nourish both ourselves and our loved ones, literally and figuratively, is something that we can really do while we give care during the pandemic.
Everything that we're going through now and the appreciation for things that we as people took for granted is everything is just so highlighted. And we're all finding our way with, in our family pods and units and finding the joy, feeling the gratitude, navigating the stress and the hard times. While we're seeing with the gift of social and seeing things virtual, just such beautiful acts of humanity across our globe, reminding us how interconnected and interdependent we are with one another. It feels, and we've talked about this a lot on Joy of Mom, that people aren't going to forget so quickly. This is unprecedented in most of our lives. I mean, for the world to be on pause like this, for there to be such nervousness and uncertainty. And so much of it also is being fueled with faith and hope and belief, and us, staying home for ourselves and for one another, and for the caregivers and for the health professionals on the front line, that everything that we could do to flatten the curve and stop this. So it just feels like a sense of hope and renewal and hope for humanity. And again, we talk about that daily with our friends on Joy of Mom, and it's community members from all over the world sharing with love and support and how can they help, and a real sense of neighborhoodness, and that we are stronger together.
You have a chance to spend, for better or worse, some quality time with people, and so you have it. Try and use this to lay down some, whether it's new traditions or just new ways to interact with one another, and realize that people everywhere are looking to connect with other people. And so if that's people in your life, take this time to reach out to them because they're probably looking for someone to talk to as well. If there aren't people directly in your life, then through groups with, the Joy of Mom or through the Caregiver Network, stay involved, start to engage with different people that you may not have met yet. And I think that's the one bright side, is that it gives you some opportunities to reconnect with people and to try and leverage that. And sometimes in support, with the ulterior motive of getting yourself some support, of taking care of yourself as well. Like you said, you feel better when you're taking care of someone. So call someone to make them feel better, but you're going to feel better as well. So don't be afraid to take advantage of that.
And Mary, one more thing. If you don't always feel positive, that's okay. Pay attention to those feelings. Reach out for some help from a friend if you're having trouble seeing the bright side through all of this. Don't force yourself to say, oh my gosh, if I'm not positive, something's wrong. Work through it, reach out for some help, and then it will come for you.
And thank you for mentioning that. And Keith, with both, we have that all the time. Some people have felt bad and let us know that they're not feeling positive, and they need, we and you guys, and I'm sure Keith with your colleagues and friends and family, it's okay, more than okay. It's needed to have these conversations. And I think it's just this wave of people being so, in a good way, broken open and vulnerable, and sharing that and getting such support and love and prayers and how can I help sent their way very vocally.
I want to just thank you on behalf of Otsuka America Pharmaceutical. Thank you so much for your candor, your vulnerability, and really just the help that you've decided to provide. And if there's one thing, I just want to go back to something, Vicki, that you mentioned. And I'm a big believer in gratitude, So I'm grateful that you spent time with us today to share your thoughts and your advice and opening up my eyes to some of these communities that either myself or maybe some of our listeners or our friends can join to get, support and help during this crisis time, but not just now, but ongoing. And if I can think of a positive thing that comes out of COVID-19, we're probably creating new communities that we probably never would have created before. I'm also thinking that it's bringing out the best in people and creating more kindness and understanding and compassion for one another.